Wade here at Risk and Safety Compliance Services, and it's Friday the 25th of July 2025. So it's the end of Farm Safety Week. Now, I hope you saw my message on LinkedIn a minute ago, advising you to go and grab yourself a cuppa, which is exactly what I did, got myself a brew. I'm only going to stay on a few moments. I want to do a wash-up of Farm Safety Week. But before I do that, first of all, thank you for joining me. If you join me live, great. If not, and you watch later, thank you. If you watch this on the YouTube channel, which is the Rural Crime Prevention and Farm Safety Training channel, would you please do me a big favor and subscribe to the channel? You've got nothing to lose, won't cost you a penny. And if you click the alert button, every time we go live, you'll get notified that things are about to happen and you might want to join us. And even if you don't, please still subscribe, because it just helps spread the reach of the channel, gives us the algorithm, picks up the fact that there's more people getting an interest in the particular channel, and it just helps spread the reach. This week, Farm Safety Week here in the UK and Australia has been really busy. There's been a lot of stuff going on. You'll have seen a lot of activity from myself, a few videos, and there's been other stuff going on with my landed estate and agricultural clients in particular, where we've done a lot of work in the build-up to Farm Safety Week, and we've been doing training and toolbox talks and little events going on around the United Kingdom. You'll have seen also Yellow Wellies organisation and Stephanie Barclay doing a lot of activity, and that's all around the UK and into Northern Ireland. So that's been fantastic. They do a great job there at Yellow Wellies. I think they're in the 13th year now of Farm Safety Week. Also this year, a slight bit of difference at the start of the week. I was very fortunate. I had a chat with Stevie Howdy from Farm Safe Australia, and I had a good chat with Stevie. I'm hoping she's going to join me actually on my podcast, my LinkedIn live chats that we do in the non too distant future, to talk about farm safety as it applies in Australia and what's going on there, because obviously it's on a huge scale down under, and it's interesting. And I'm going to show you a slide in a moment. It doesn't matter really, wherever you are in the world. It doesn't really matter whether you're in the UK, Australia, America, New Zealand, Germany, France, whatever. If you work in the agricultural sector, the things that are killing people, injuring people, and making them sick at work, they're identical. So it makes absolutely no difference. Thanks to whoever's just joined us there. We've got a few people watching now. Before we move on, what I can say is if you're part of that live audience now, you can type into your little box, whether you're on LinkedIn or whether you're on YouTube, and any comments will appear here on the right hand side in my little online studio. And if they're appropriate, I can bring them in and we can discuss them. So feel free to do that. I've put a very brief presentation together. Let me bring that up. So as we come to the end of Farm Safety Week here in the United Kingdom, today's the last day. I think in Australia it goes on a little bit longer. It goes on for the weekend as well. As we come to the end of Farm Safety Week, I've just put a little presentation together because it's all about taking action. This week we've heard lots of stories. The theme in Australia has been near miss. There's been lots of different themes depending on what particular sector of agriculture and farming that you work in. But predominantly it's all about protecting our main and most important asset, our people, looking after lives, looking after families, and by default looking after our businesses and keeping our farming and agricultural businesses financially and operationally viable by looking after our people. And I'm going to mention that very briefly in a moment. But at the end of the day, it boils down to taking action. But it's such a diverse sector. There's a lot of stuff going on. We're using lots of big heavy machinery. We're working out in the fields. We're working in all sorts of adverse weather conditions, whether that's hot or cold. So there's all of these things that we have to interact with on a day-to-day basis that could, and sadly do, lead to a lot of harm, a lot of heartache, a lot of injury, and ultimately every year a lot of death. Still to this day, agriculture is the most dangerous occupation to have in the United Kingdom. And it's been that way for some years. But that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. There's a lot we can do if we take everything that we've been talking about here in Farm Safety Week and extrapolate that across the remaining 51 weeks of the year. Let's make every day Farm Safety Day, not just Farm Safety Week. And that's a really, really important message. The things we do this week, we've really got to continue to do and indeed improve upon as we move away from Farm Safety Week into what is effectively business as usual. So let's keep the momentum going. Let's make sure every day is Farm Safety Day. I'll put a few slides together for us to talk about. I want to talk about this international approach to agriculture and farm and landed estate safety. What you can see tickering along the bottom there is our link to farmsafetytraining.co.uk. And shortly, I'm going to show you the farm that you can come into when you do that training course. I'll also talk about the free offer that is on today with regards to that training. So when that course was put together, when we first decided, let's put together a unique and innovative training opportunity for people in the sector, we did a lot of research and we looked at New Zealand and Australia and America and the United Kingdom, and we also looked at Africa and indeed across Saudi Arabia and other areas where there's a lot of farming on a massive scale going on. And we looked at the publicly available data so we could do an analysis and work out what the key issues were. It was of no surprise that the key issues are the same. So if you work in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, France, Germany, whatever it is, anywhere around the world, if it's farming, if it's agriculture, if it's landed estate, we know already what the issues are. But we did our research and that became the basis upon which we built our training course, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But I want to make the message really clear that it doesn't matter where you are. The problems are the same. We've got certain health and safety responsibilities. Now, if we can get this part of the equation right, everything else follows. And I'm going to do two quick sections here, very, very brief. I'm going to look at the responsibilities of those in charge, the managers, the owners, the landed estate sort of factors, those people looking after and dictating the day-to-day operation and organization of the business, those who decide this is what we're going to do. So there's specific responsibilities for that section of individuals. And then after that, I'll look at the employees and the workers and the casual staff and see what they ought to be doing. And it's not rocket science, it's very, very straightforward. Let me make that a bit bigger. So when we look at farming operations themselves, what we want to look at is, basically speaking, so how are we going to keep our people safe and why? And there's three key factors as to why we want to look after our people, basically. Let me just move that logo out of the way. The first one we want to consider is the moral. There's then the financial, and then there's the legal reasons. And I'm not going to talk about the legal reasons today. But firstly, from a moral perspective, if you run a business, if it's a farming operation, a landed estate, whether it's a rural business, generally speaking, or a diversification, there's a lot of that going on at the moment, whether it's in forestry or fishing, you have people coming to help you run that business. Without them, you have no business. And so by default, you have a moral obligation as the employer. You have a duty of care to all employees and visitors who interact with your business. Your workers, whether they're full-time, part-time, seasonal staff, whether they're British or foreign nationals, irrelevant, they have the right to feel safe and secure at work. And basically, safer workplaces are not only good for workers, but they're also good for the business and the business owners. So you want to hopefully have that moral approach to health and safety. We do it because it's the right thing to do for our people. And by default, a byproduct of that is you end up with it being good for your business as well. What about the financial side of things then? So I think we've agreed it's fine. Morally, it's a great idea to have good proactive health and safety and risk management within these businesses. But what about the financial implications if we don't implement robust and demonstrable systems of risk and safety management? Well, we end up with injuries. Injuries at work can lead to fines and devastating costs to the business. If an injury leads to an investigation and ultimately a prosecution, perhaps from the enforcing authorities, the fines can be absolutely devastating for your business. They're uninsured costs. So the impact is not just the ultimate fine, it's the time and the effort. And I've worked with businesses going through this process where they've been prosecuted or they're under investigation. It's extremely stressful. It's stressful on individuals, and it's stressful by default on the actual business and the viability and operational effectiveness of the business involved. So we don't want accidents and incidents distracting our time away from the core business of doing whatever our business is. It's a costly exercise. Where we are injuring people at work and making people sick at work, our insurances kick into place. They don't just pay out forever and ever and ever. At some point, your premiums go up dramatically and drastically. And again, that has a direct impact upon the operational viability of your business, because one of your major cost centers, without which you're not legally allowed to operate, suddenly goes rocketing and causes a major disruption. Obviously, where we've got accidents and incidents, there's another cost involved. That could be due to associated product or material damage. Accidents cause damage to building, damage to vehicles, damage to operations and the areas in which people work. Accidents and incidents leads to a loss of expertise, and of course, replacement staff costs can be quite costly, not just financially, but also the people you lose are your experienced and seasoned operatives. They've got all the knowledge and the know-how and wherewithal about the business. And by suffering accidents and incidents or illnesses that remove them from the business, you end up with a big problem. And of course, if something bad happens, you could be headline news. You could be on News at 10, your local newspaper, your local news or radio channels. And of course, in the age of the internet and mobile phones, and news is out there very quick, and once it's out, you can't control it. Your brand could be damaged very, very quickly from a simple accident or incident that occurs within the workplace that's then suddenly cast all over the internet, all over YouTube, all over Twitter, X, or Facebook. So again, we need to avoid this at all costs. So let's have a quick look then. Let me bring myself back into show. On this slide that you can see there, I've just made a note of the key things that the owner or manager or operator, supervisor, if you like, of a business in the agriculture, landed, estate and farming sector needs to be doing, not just for legal compliance, although that is a key factor. And often you'll be getting a visit, depending on the scale of your operation, you'll often get a visit from your insurance liability assessor to look at these aspects of compliance. And where you're non-compliant, they'll make recommendations for improvement. So at some point, you're going to have these. I don't want to harp on about the legal responsibility, because that's the base level, that's the minimum, isn't it? That's the thing that everybody has to do. We don't really want the legal compliance side to be our benchmark, in my opinion. We want to be better than that. We want to be in the best practice arena, best in class arena, rather than, oh yes, we're just complying with the minimum requirements as dictated by the law of whatever jurisdiction you're in. So don't just stick with the legal requirements, but if you've got these, let me bring that up. If you've got these basics in place and they're well put together and reviewed and effective, then you're off to a great start when it comes to health and safety and risk management within your agricultural business. First of all, insurance policy. Well, I'll start at the left top and work myself around. First of all, your insurance policy. Well, you're not allowed to operate a business in the United Kingdom of any nature without a effective and fully in place employees liability insurance policy to protect your employees. But also, of course, you need all the other types of insurance that you need to consider. Insurance is my background. I've always been risk and safety consultant, trainer and advisor, but always associated with insurance brokers. So my advice is always go and get yourself a good broker with knowledge of the agriculture and landed estate sector, and let them advise you appropriately depending upon your circumstances. I'm not a major fan of going online for complex operations. Online policies may fit the bill, but often they don't. And at the point where you need to make a claim because of a loss, that's the worst time to find out that actually you're not covered for that. So you need a good broker. So go and get yourself a great agriculture or rural focused insurance broker and get the right policies in place for employees liability, public liability, product liability. There's products and services for insurance for people fly tipping on your land, for business interruption, for cyber issues. You need a broker. It's a specialist area of business. Get a specialist advisor. And then very briefly, working around cost assessments, we need a good set of robust, put together by a competent person, cost assessments to make sure that you're operating safely from a chemical perspective, whether it's fertilizers, pesticides, rodenticides, or any general chemicals that you use in the workplace. I'll come back to employee training in a moment. You need robust risk assessments. At the bottom, underneath the red writing there, you can see the general display screen equipment, fire, machinery, young persons, and workplace risk assessments as an example of some of the risk assessments that you ought to be considering. They need to be put together by a competent person. That could well be yourself, competent person, an advisor helping if required, and they need to be suitable and sufficient. They need to identify all of the things that could go wrong. They need to address all of the key hazards, but more importantly, they then need to work into effective and robust control mechanisms to remove or reduce the risk to an acceptable level. So that risk assessment process is critical. It's a fundamental starting point of getting risk and safety correct in any business, but particularly in our business of agriculture and landed estates and forestry and fishing, where we're dealing with some big, dangerous activities and big, dangerous machinery and adverse conditions. So get those risk assessments correct. There on the next box is your health and safety law poster. That needs to be displayed with the boxes filled in. And if you're employing 5 or more people, you need a good, robust health and safety policy, a statement, and then a policy that follows on from that. So basically it becomes your, this is what we do around here for health and safety document. And again, there's loads of advice available if you need help putting that together. Once you've done all of that, and that's literally the minimum, the bare minimum, there's more, but we don't have time to talk about it today, then there needs to be an audit process. You need to ensure that what you've done initially is actually fit for purpose, but more importantly, remains fit for purpose as well. So you need audits, you need inspections, maybe by an independent third party, non-biased individual, to tell you that what you're doing is either great, carry on doing it, or it's not so great and there's a few bits that need tweaking, and here's an action plan. A lot of this risk and safety and the management, effective management of it, will ultimately boil down to what you're looking at on that screen in front of you there, and good training. Your people need training. There's so much training required in this sector, and I've just put a few examples there, some classic ones, like obviously you need a good induction process. Otherwise, right from the start, right from day one, you've got people operating at risk. And then there's fire and first aid and manual handling and worker height, and on it goes. And that's not a definitive list, by the way. That list is just the starting point. But that's where your risk assessment comes into place. You need, by assessing the risks, the control measures required will fall out of that risk assessment process, and often the required level of training will be included in that risk assessment control mechanism that falls out of the risk assessment process. So that's what you need to do if you work. If your employ people and you own the business, or you own the farm, the estate, or whatever it might be. What about employees, casual workers, and seasonal staff? On this slide, these are the things. Let me bring myself back in. These are the things that we know will kill and injure and make your people sick every year in UK, Germany, France, Australia, New Zealand, or anywhere around the world. It doesn't really matter. Those are the common factors that are going to cause you an issue every single year, without fail, always the same. Let's move on to this one. I'll make this a bit bigger. This just gives you an indication of how important these causal factors are. On the top left, you can see the deaths. These are the fatalities. The figures are arbitrary, and this is from last year, but it's around about the same percentage most years. It fluctuates, but it'll give you a good indication of the causal factor and the level to which that's an issue. So on the top left, then, things that are killing people: vehicles, falling objects, being struck by things, falling off a height, injured by animals, and coming into contact with moving machinery. And then on the bottom right, they're the non-fatals, and they differ slightly, as you can see. Most common and causing about a quarter of accidents and incidents that don't kill people in the sector every year are slips, trips, and falls on the same level. Simply tripping over, slipping over, tipping over a bit of, falling over something that's been left lying around, for example. Again, falls from height, animals, machinery, they're pretty much the same. What you'll notice, though, what's worth noticing here is on the bottom right, being struck by a moving vehicle doesn't appear. And that's an alarm bell, because what it's telling us is, look, if you're struck by a vehicle, the chances are it's going to kill you. It's going to be really serious. So by analysing these statistics, knowing what the issues are, but more importantly, the likely severity and outcome, that gives us a chance during our risk assessment process of really focusing our attention and ensuring our time, effort, and resource goes to those areas that are of biggest risk, rather than concentrating on trivial risk, which isn't likely to happen, and if it doesn't cause much of an issue. Let's concentrate on the big stuff. Let's make sure vehicles being hit by objects, falls from height, the things that are going to injure and kill our people, they're the most important ones. Okay, so I've got one more slide to pop up now, and then we can close it off. It's only been about 20 minutes or so. farmsafetytraining.co.uk. You can see it tickering across the bottom. You can see it on the slide over there, and also it's really, really important. So what we did is we developed some unique training courses. They've been around for a few years now. They're very popular. They're in use. People use our training from around the world, and we also partner with key players in the agricultural sector. So we're partners with insurance brokers, and we're partners with land agents and certain solicitors and accountancy companies who specialize in this sector. And our aim is to get training, relevant training, fun training to the people at risk. And that's what we've done with our interactive 3D farm health and safety training courses. We've got two courses. We've got one for managers and we've got one for workers. And as you'd expect, they're slightly different in their content. The one for managers and supervisors and owners, that goes into the legalities of running and operating a business in the agriculture, landed estate and farming sector. And it covers things like risk assessment, safety policies, RIDDOR, LOLA inspections, accident book, first aid provisions, fire safety provisions. So all of the things that are management responsibilities. And that's really, really important. Then on the other side, we've got the workers' health and safety course. It's a much, much shorter course. That just concentrates on the employee, the casual worker or the seasonal worker, and basically adopts the premise of, well, welcome. So you're an employee in an agricultural business. How about you think about the following and you'll stay safe? And we just talk about before they come to work, arriving at work, what condition they're meant to be in mentally, physically, non-impaired through drink or drugs, for example, and not too tired. And then we talk about the risks and the dangers, so those common accidents that we know every year injure and kill people, make people ill at work. And then we concentrate in very straight talking. So this is what you need to do. Wear this, do this, don't do this, report this. And it's really, really straightforward. And so I'd urge you to go to there. Let me just bring that up very briefly. www.farmsafetytraining.co.uk. There's a special deal on today. They say there's no such thing as a free lunch. That's probably true, but what there is such a thing as is free health and safety training. It's $10.19 now on Friday the 25th of July 2025. And for the remainder of today, the Worker Farm Safety course is free. So you can actually go to farmsafetytraining.co.uk, click the link. It will take you to the landing page where you can sign up and click the button. And when you get to the checkout, put in the code farm worker, you get a free course. You'll get exactly the same course. It's not a filtered or watered down course, but it's only for today, and you'll still get certificated at the end of it. Do you want to have a quick look at what that course looks like once you're inside? Let me get rid of that. What I'll do is if I open up this screen here, it'll enable me to tell you a little bit about the course itself very briefly. So the course it's fully automated and it's delivered in a manner that I know is engaging, and I know is okay for the end user, because the feedback we've had, which you can see on the landing pages, is really, really good. People actually like the course. Hello and welcome, whoever else has just joined us. Just coming to the end though, good timing. The course itself is really, really straightforward from start to finish. Whether you're on the free course today for farm workers at you can see it going there, farmsafetytraining.co.uk, or whether you're on a paid course, the process is the same. You decide you want the course, you go to the landing page, you click, and you pay your money, and then automatically you will receive an email from my online school inviting you to register. You simply click the link. It will take you into the back end of the school. You set your own password and away you go. And you can work your way through the chapters and avail yourself of all of the free downloads and the videos and the case studies. There's all sorts of stuff inside both of the courses, both the farm worker and the farm supervisor owner manager course. Loads of stuff inside the course that you can have and download and keep for yourself once you've signed up to the course. But what we did when we put the course together, let's have a quick slurp here. What I did was I personally went and sat whatever courses were available to me on the internet of a similar nature. And there was about 3 or 4 that I did. And they were all quite good. So there were some really good ones, some not so good ones. But what I noted at the time was kind of a lack of realism. There's a lot of pictures and there were some YouTube videos, but it only gave a one-dimensional view of whatever the topic was and one person's kind of take on things. So what I wanted to do was get the user on our courses a little bit more engaged and a little bit more involved. And what you're looking at the moment, and I'll show it you in action very briefly, we devise a 3D interactive element that people can can actually come into our farm and have a look around. This is a real farm. This is in the northeast of the United Kingdom, where I went with a colleague of mine, and we sent the drone up and we got some aerial footage, and then we used the same technology that Google used to map the earth. We did it with this farm, and it was all sewed together. And what you can see is the 3D interactive farm. And what happens is, as you work your way through the course, just before you get to this bit, there's a briefing that explains what you need to do. And in a nutshell, it says, right, come on into the farm, go around the different areas. The ones that flash means you can do something. They all flash in the real version. This is just the demo. And so the idea is you go in and you're kind of on a hazard spotting exercise. You're looking for things that are wrong. And we set up loads of stuff that is wrong and needs you to look at it. And the idea is to find a problem and have a good think about, well, why is that a problem? And more importantly, what could the impact be upon the business or the people in the business? And then that should naturally lead on to, we have a problem then that could cause, let's say, an injury or a business interruption or not being able to harvest or plow or whatever. Now, what are we going to do about it? So that's the key thing. It leads people to think, what's the solution to the identified issue? And by having this interactive farm, that's what we've achieved. And then let me take you inside. So let's go into the store and the workshop. So you can see it's flashing. That means I can do something. So if I click that, this is the demo version, by the way. It'll open up. It will put you inside. So you're now in the 3D interactive farm. And basically, the world's your oyster. You can do what you want, and you can use your mouse. You zoom in, get right in and close, or you can zoom out and you can drag it and click around. Again, see, literally is this clicking around. This is a limited version. Normally, in the real version, you would be able to just carry on and go through that door. But obviously here, if this is the demo, we want people to click that and then sign up to the course itself. And so the idea is you're looking around all of this stuff, and we want you to identify any issues and come up with solutions. Also on the demo, although you won't see this initially on the real walk around, we've got these little icons that lead to YouTube channels. So once the student has been all around the different areas and they've made a note of all of the dangers and the hazards that they've identified themselves, they then go back in separately, and then in the second visit, in the answers part of the farm, they come with all these little icons pop up which link to brief YouTube videos. So in that one, for example, I'm not going to click it now, but if I did, a very short 20-second YouTube video would open up inside the browser and say, well done. So you spotted the fact that there's a fire extinguisher that's 8 foot up in the air, has no signage, and probably hasn't been tested for the last 30 years. Well done. What are we going to do about it? Oh, we're going to mount it at correct level in a suitable position, put safe use signage, and ensure we get them inspected, tested, and maintained every year. So you end up with the problem and an answer, and that's what that's all about. Let's see if I can show you just one more, just continue the theme. On the main one, they do all work, but in this one, let's quickly nip into the farmyard. Again, it will zoom you in at any time. You can click the icon and you'll come back up to the aerial view from where we had the drone operating. But if you want to zoom back in, the little white arrows mean not on this one. This one wants you to sign up. Look, you got to click there and sign up. But normally you can click around and interact, and you can basically do stuff. One of the other things, I'll quickly show you this. I think it's quite interesting. There's a lot of information. People want information, don't they? You don't want to go on a training course and not come away with stuff that you can take away. So we have various bits of information available inside the course. So even on this demo, I've left these live. as you work your way through the course, you'll see these little icons. And if they're of interest to you, for example, gassing of rabbits using or other vertebrate pests, then you can click that icon. And with that, it's now inside your own browser. So, you could save it, or you could print it, or you can do whatever you want with it. And these are publicly available documents from the Health and Safety Executive website and others. And again, you can drag and, move around and have a good look to see what's going on the farm. When something catches your attention, you can, zoom in and zoom out. I like it. It's pretty cool. And I'm not, let me just close that for now. Sorry. I'm not aware of any other courses that I've seen that have the 3D interactive element to it. It's the part of the course that we get the most feedback on. It's changed, by the way. We're in about the third iteration now. We'd like to think it's got better and better. We listen to the feedback, and the course that people can get onto now is nothing really like the one that was first launched when we first had the idea back in 2020. We updated every year anyway for latest accidents and incident statistics. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Right, there you go then. That's me. That went on a bit longer than I thought it was going to, but I hope it's been of interest to you. The upshot then, let's just summarize. The upshot is this is Farm Safety Week in the UK. It's just coming to an end. In agriculture, landed estate, farming as a whole, it is the most dangerous sector to work in the United Kingdom. It will be more dangerous than working in construction and retail, even more dangerous, more deadly, sadly, than working in the waste sector, which is typically, thought of as, that's a real dangerous place to be. Well, and it is, but not as much as the farming and agricultural sector. So if we accept the premise that working on farms, agriculture, landed estates, etc., is really, really potentially dangerous, then that should alert management and owners and operators and workers to the fact that we need to do something. We must take appropriate action, because if we don't, we're going to become a statistic in the HSE publication at some point. And then don't forget, in this sector, we're not talking nicks, we're not talking scratches, we're talking big machinery, we're talking tractors, quad bikes, large animals that weigh about 1.5 tons, like cattle and bulls. We're talking of things that in the blink of an eye will kill you, will break your back, or make you lose sight, or fracture something. It literally is life-changing. And sadly, as the HSE statistics recently published show, yet again, this sector is the most dangerous to work. And what makes it even sadder, if you like, is we could have predicted this year's statistics last year and the year before and the year before and the year before, because they're identical. The numbers change a little bit year on year. There might be 23 killed this year and there might be 27 last year, but that's still 23 or 27 or thereabouts. Mums, dads, brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, family members, breadwinners, people who are key to the family unit, key to the community, and key to society in general. It's a massive impact. When one person gets badly injured or killed in work, not just in this sector, in any workplace, the repercussions are huge and life-changing for many, 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 many people. But I'm very pleased to say they're preventable, but we have to do something. It's not a per chance and a happenstance. We have to take action. And if those who just joined and those who watch later, if you go back to the start, the stuff that we need to do isn't rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. So get the business model correct, get the risk assessments and the training and the policies and the procedures right, ensure our people are briefed and trained and competent. It will follow that they're going to be safer. It's never 100% safe. It's a big, nasty, dangerous business that we're in. We need to accept that. But we also need to accept we've got a lot to do to ensure that we don't become a victim of that big, dangerous place that we work in. Well, I hope that's been of interest. I'd like to wish you all a great weekend. It's now 10:32 on the end of Farm Safety Week. I'm Richard Wade. You can always contact me at that website there, or the one that you can see behind me. Risk and Safety Compliance Services is the main business under which we operate all our rural crime stuff and our farm safety stuff and our innovative light technology systems that we have. That's for another time. But if you're interested, go to farmsafetytrain.co.uk or go to rascs.co.uk, and I'll be delighted to hear from you if you have any comments. Take care.